At this time, the state is making a recommendation of 45 years with 25 to serve in custody, followed by 20 on probation, subject to the special requirements of 1615 the gang statute.
All right, and do you want to break down for me what your recommended sentence on each count is?
Yes, Your Honor. The state is recommending on count 1, 5 years to serve. Count 56, 20 years to serve consecutively to count 1. Count 57, 5 years of probation to serve consecutively to count 56. Count 58, 10 years of probation to serve concurrently with count 57. Count 59, 5 years of probation to serve concurrently with count 57 and 58. Count 60, 5 years of probation concurrent with count 57, 58, and 59. Count 61, 5 years of probation consecutive to count 57. And count 62, 10 years of probation consecutive to count 61.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Williams, did you discuss the state's previous offer with your attorneys?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and so we're all clear that we're talking about the same thing. Can you put what the state's previous offer was on the record for me, please?
I can, Your Honor.
Thank you.
The state's previous offer was a total of 43 years with 20 years, 5 years to serve on count 56, commuted to time served, followed by 15 years on probation. On count 58, the sentence was 10 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to count 56. Count 59 was 3 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56 and 58. Count 60 was 5 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56, 58, and 59. Count 61 was 5 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56, 58, 59, and 60.
Was that the entirety of what the sentence was?
No, Your Honor,
I mean, I know
still
there were
reading.
special conditions, so y'all were
There
going to
are.
null pros
Yeah,
1
yeah.
and 62?
Yes, as part
Okay.
of the recommended sentence, in exchange for the defendant agreeing to the special conditions that we asked the court to impose, the state was willing to null pros count 1, count 57, and count 62.
Okay, and then all of that consecutive to the probation, that was going to be what we call backloaded, and what were y'all proposing with regard to that, since it was going to follow the probated sentence?
The total sentence was 43 years to serve, with the first 5 years in prison commuted to time served, followed by 15 years on probation, followed by 23 years in prison, which would have been served in confinement, except that if defendant had complied with the special conditions of probation imposed as part of this sentence, the backloaded portion of defendant's sentence would have been commuted. However, should defendant had violated any special condition of probation within the first 15 years of his sentence, his probated sentence would have immediately been revoked, and he would have been required to serve the entire remainder of his sentence confined to the Georgia Department of Corrections.
All right, so as long as he had successfully completed his 15 years of probation, the 23 years that was going to follow it was going to be commuted to time served as long as his probation was successful. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And the special, would the court like for us to?
No, I was really more interested in the length of sentence and what y'all had. I know you didn't reach agreement, but y'all, that's what the last offer had been with, of course, a bunch of special conditions, which I guess is where the hang-up was. I don't know.
Right. Defendant did not want to agree to the special conditions.
All right. Is that basically your understanding too, Mr.
Yes, Your
Steele
Honor.
and
It would
Mr.
have been,
Adams?
yes, Your Honor. Mr. Williams would have been released today for 15 years on probation. If he successfully completes that probation, then he would not have to go to custody. If he did not, he'd face probation revocation as well as 23 years, as the court said, backloaded in the Georgia prison system. But we could not come to terms on all the conditions that the district attorney was insisting upon.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Love. All right. So it is not lost on the court that the state, had they been able to come to agreement on certain special conditions, was willing to entirely dismiss the RICO count, was willing to entirely dismiss one of the gang counts, and was willing to entirely dismiss this, machine gun count. Was willing to give a sentence that permitted Mr. Williams to walk out of the door today, and therefore does not seem to be particularly worried that Mr. Williams, if on the streets, would be a danger to society. I'm taking that into consideration in crafting my sentence. And in permitting a NOLO plea to the RICO count and one of the two gang counts, I would not be permitting the NOLO to the one if you were not pleading guilty to at least one of them. But you are, and y'all admit a factual basis for the counts that you are pleading guilty to. I find there to be a factual basis for those counts, and for the remaining counts with which you are charged. I am going to impose a sentence, and I've taken a little bit of the suggested special conditions from the defense and a little bit of the special conditions suggested by the prosecution. On count one, the court sentence is 20 years to serve 5 years, commuted to time served, the balance of 15 years to be probated, and a $25,000 fine. On count two, the sentence is 5 years to serve, commuted to time served. That's the minimum sentence that's permitted on that count. It is required to be run consecutively. I'm going to run it consecutive to count one, but I am going to backload. Oh, I'm sorry, that is not commuted. That is 5 years to serve, and it's going to be run consecutively to count one, backloaded, by which I mean after you serve your 15 years of probation, if you have been successful on that probation, and I sincerely hope that you are, then at the end of that 15 years, I will commute the entire rest of any service portion of your sentence to time served. So I'll get to the end of it and give you the total sentence, but I'm also going to impose a $15,000 fine with regard to that count. Count 57, 20 years to serve 5, commuted to time served, the balance of 15 years probated, concurrent with count 1. Count 58, 10 years to serve 5, commuted to time served, balance probated, concurrent with count 1. 59, 5 years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. 60, 5 years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. Count 61, 5 years to serve, that is required to be also a consecutive sentence, so that's going to be run consecutively to count 56 and backloaded. Count 62, 10 years to serve, also required to be served consecutively. That's going to be consecutive to count 61, also backloaded. So essentially, the total sentence is 40 years to serve the first 5 years in prison, but commuted to the time that you have already served, followed by 15 years on probation, followed then by the backloaded 20 years, which can be served in custody and will be served in custody if you are not successful on your probation. If you are successful in completing your 15 years probation, that will be commuted to time served.
We don't give a fuck! Jesus! We don't give a fuck!
A lot of shit pissed me off, but not this. Y'all asked for Young Thug to be free. Jeffrey is now being released. You know, he did his 5 years. He got probation, 20 years suspended. If he gets in any trouble, they said he can't be in Atlanta for 10 years. They said he can't be making no gang-related music, or he has 20 years hanging over his head. This is what it's all about, you know. They trying to catch him a little bit later. They didn't have enough evidence right now, but they gonna catch you a little bit later, all right? Now, Thugger free, you know, Woody already apologized, so we already know that ain't nothing gonna happen to Woody, right? But the judge said that he can't make any gang-related music, so if he goes in the studio with Gutta and start doing too much, then his ass is going to jail for 20 years. And we ain't gonna be able to do nothing. Ain't gonna be no trials. It's gonna be over with. Because he could just be violated for probation, and that'll be a suspended sentence right there. So you can't go in Atlanta for 10 years. No gang related music. He requested to be making songs with Thugger. I mean with Gunna. And yeah, they dropped the free Thugger. And we're about to be able to enjoy some of his classical music, you know, some of his hits, you know. Rich Gang. So it is what it is. That's what y'all wanted. He didn't he did better than a lot of these rappers. That's crazy. Better than Lucci. They done locked up Lucci all this damn time. Let's see how Dirk do. Dirk might get the fuck out quick too. You got a lawyer like Young Thugger right here. But it is what it is, man. Y'all wanted it. Yeah, we can have it. Sounds acceptance and we ain't having it. Like, comment, subscribe.